I think someone here, right? There's someone here that raised the hand, and one there. Okay, go ahead here, and then we come on.
Thank you. My name is Danny Isager. I'm from Rambo. I would like to go back to a little bit more practical approach, back to the project management, actually. Ricardo, you mentioned a lot of toolkits, stuff like that, and one of the things you mentioned was mentoring. And I would like to ask you, how will you see the challenges and opportunities of mentoring in the future? And I'm especially thinking of how will you be able to mentor locally local project managers in order to be able to develop their own project managers and maybe even take over the projects that you deliver?
Okay, so I can answer to your question in different aspects. The first one is what we call the formal training. So we are doing a lot of formal training. This is not the mentoring, but this is something like a first step to make sure that people has at least the basic knowledge around the topic. The second one is the missions. So the missions, what we do, we bring people with more experience in terms of project management to work together with our national people to develop and to solve the problems on the job. Okay, this is the second. The third one that we are starting next year, it's what we are calling something like a rotation. So we are trying to identify project managers and not move them all for 1 year, but bring them with us to other places to expose, because maybe you are in Haiti, for example, and your experience can benefit DRC in Congo, for example. So maybe you can spend 2 weeks there sharing on the job, the challenge, the problems, how you solve. So to create more this mentorship program. Of course, not every single project can be a mentor. Okay, but we want to start bringing this. So we are bringing now some people from outside to give this outside perspective of project management. We are bringing people from inside. We are moving people. So we are trying to create this process of rotation so the knowledge can be spread out. So we are trying to build bridges, because sometimes you are in a project in one country, with all your challenges, and it's like you have a walls in your work, and maybe someone in the other side. So this is what we're trying, and we are also trying to do this through a knowledge base. That is also a very big challenge we face. And it's not the technological, but it's the cultural aspect of sharing knowledge, you know. So there is a big change in the mindset of how we share knowledge because of the cultural aspect. So how we can do this. So it's a very big challenge. And we are working very hard with governments to make them aware of the benefits of proper planning. So just to give you one number, just to show you how is the benefit. PMI did a research last year. When you don't manage projects properly, you put around 27% of your budget in risk. When you manage them properly, you reduce from 27 to 3%. So it's 24%. It's almost a quarter of your project budget that you are avoiding just by managing better, just by identifying risks better, managing the people better. So and this is a challenge. So are the steps we're doing. It's a big challenge, okay? Any other? Okay, okay, we have one here, one there, and one here. Okay.
Hi, my name is Eva. I'm Norwegian, and it's quite interesting to hear all.
You are Norwegian? Okay.
All the different
Henrik.
aspects of Norwegian.
Henrik will take your question.
Yes.
No problem.
I'm not gonna go into the Norwegian aspect of it. I work for an engineering consultancy firm called Kontmi. I'm not an engineer. I would like to ask you about the aspects of non-engineering, but project management of teams and multidisciplinary teams. I was just at the EU Development Days in Brussels yesterday, and they talked a lot about defining roles within development aid as a new aspect after 2015, and also defining roles within the multidisciplinary approach. I think that's quite important also in terms of teams, and maybe not only having engineers on the teams, but also sustaining that you can have, well, the different social economists, geographers on teams. Also to have the 3- or 4-fold sustainability approach being taken care of. Do you see this as something that you will focus on in the future, or do you see this as something that's been tried and failed? Or I'd like to have your approach on that.
Who wants to? Do you want to? Henrik, start.
Since there was a mention of I should answer all questions remotely connected to Norway, I'll probably have to pick that up. I think you're absolutely right that, this session here has focused, I've been talking about infrastructure, and Luke has been picking up on the engineering side, and you have Gill on the humanitarian side, and I think Gill is maybe the one also that you have a lot of different skills that needs to go into the project team in order to deliver, depending on what it is. So from my experience out there even on infrastructure teams, you have a lot of different skills that is needed. Of course you have the financial and the legal, but normally you also have the social outreach team, and you have the communication teams, and you have also then the general product, depending on the size of the project. Because if you have a project, we can carry the cost of a project manager who is not substance specific. You absolutely need someone who is managing it, and you have a contract manager in addition that keeps track on what we're doing. But in many circumstances, you need to combine this into, if it's a project that is specific on procurement solutions, you need a project manager who is both project management skills and the substance skills on the procurement solutions. On larger projects, you can scale that up, and of course, different kind of disciplines. So that's just from a point of view. Depending on the size, if you're building a small health clinic, you might only have 1 or 2 there leading the team, and the rest is local staff. If you're building a more complex bridge, you of course have a larger team. So I would definitely say there's a lot of space for non-engineering entities, especially in the humanitarian context and the response context. And also something that maybe been missed a little bit in the discussion here is the difference between humanitarian response, which is there to save lives, and the development context, and the kind of gray zone when you move from the humanitarian response to the development context, and how you can actually start on development as quickly as possible. I think I stopped there. I just wanted to mention that in many infrastructure projects you do have different skill sets.
Yeah, for me this also comes back a little bit to the discussion we were having earlier about what sort of skills does a project manager need in the future. And I think we can be in danger of creating a role that's unachievable. And actually, I think the most important thing for people that go in with a technical specialism that perhaps don't have such a good such good experience in terms of social mobilisation, for example, is that you find people that do and work with them. So you draw on these other disciplines to complement your technical expertise, so that you do get a rounded input into a project design. The other thing in terms of project management as a process, and some of the tools involved in project management, I think they're extremely good in helping to build a team. So not only focusing on the technical aspects, but also bringing in these other areas of expertise. So, for example, people with expertise on gender, expertise on disaster risk reduction, that sort of thing. So they're all brought into the process from the start, and actually using some of the project management tools are very good in team building as well.
Yeah, it's probably a flaw in my presentation that of course you need more than engineers to make a project successful. It's a bit inherent in our name that I have to talk about engineers, but it's a little bit like talking about doctors without borders and saying they only ever need doctors. which is not true at all. I'm happy. I was talking to Dokter from Engineers Without Borders Denmark yesterday, and that organisation actually attracts quite people that aren't engineers as well. Things are never going to work well if you only have a room full of engineers. If they can, at the end of the day, agree on what they want to do, everyone has their own opinion, so you definitely need other disciplines and other skills in there too.
Yeah. I want just to put some fire on the discussion. I think we mentioned here a lot of engineer, because engineer, it's easy, you know, it's easy to see, building the bridge and this. But I want to challenge our concept that project manager needs to be a technical specialist. I read a lot of research on that, and the biggest problem, now it's changing, but when I study, I'm a chemical engineer, so I'm not an engineer, a typical civil engineer. I have some math background, but I'm a chemical engineer. And one of the things that I learned when I left the school is that, oh, look, people, I need to work with people. Nobody told me this in my 5 years at the school. I think it was only machine. You just turn on, off, and do some maintenance. And then I needed to start learning. So in Brazil, there is a very common slang that what is in the brain of an engineer is only concrete, right? And look, this is for me one of the biggest challenges we have. It's how we can fit this. And look, if we don't have this, of course, to build a bridge, you need technical skills, but you don't need only technical skills. So it's very important, because maybe the technical skills is the dream person that we're maybe trying to achieve. It's not possible. It's someone with everything. And then it will be a very scarce resource with these both skills. But I can share with you, I can send to you together with the PowerPoint. There are many articles saying that if you need to choose, it's like a coach in the soccer, football. The coach doesn't need to be a brilliant player, right? But she or he needs to know how the game is played, right? And need to know how to find the right people. So, for example, I have a very strong experience in oil, in mining and merger and acquisition. So I did very different kind of projects. And I didn't have the skill, the technical. I'm not an oil engineer, but I know how to find them and how to bring them to the team and how to make them work together, you know, as a team to deliver. So I think this is a competence that is critical for the project manager, okay? The project manager. And we need to understand that not always the project manager is the resident engineer that takes care of the technical aspect. We need to understand that this too. It's like in IT. It's like in IT. It's the same thing. We think that the guy to manage an IT project must be the best developer. And usually the best developers, they don't talk too much, right? It's not, no, I'm just joking, but it's not. So how you can play this. So it's a very tricky, and I'll be sharing this. Marianne, just remember me, I'll be sharing with you this article. It's a very strong article with a research about project results. Lorena, we have one person here. Yeah.
So I'm quite short, this is why I'm standing there. As a Uruguayan Italian, I love the soccer example.
Okay.
So, no, my concern is that we normally in the field, I have great experience in the field, and then neither one approach, totally approach of from the project management view or from the starting junior officer will be the best issue. I mean, from my point, I myself, I learn a lot from junior staff, even from interns. It's like not only mentoring, as you say, but it's also to learn from people who can bring new ideas and new views of how to solve a problem. But my concern is going to be short is UNOPS is taking a very leadership on this issue of, I may say that, sustainable project management. What should be the best way ahead? Sustainable project management standards, sustainable project management certification, because we need to talk on the same language, and we are going to present a proposal to a donor. If they see the word sustainable, and they will love it, okay? But then the issue is that we are not really delivering that way. So how we can align all these things in standards from procurement, from recruitment, as you say, from gathering the knowledge, is it feasible that UNOPS may take the lead of kind of standards or certification, something? Thank you.
I can do one. Okay. Thank you for your question. Really, when you talk about standards and we talk about certifications, to be honest with you, this is something probably in a more long-term future. What we're trying to do now as much as we can is, okay, we need to deliver better and more sustainable way. So how we can do something now, tomorrow, today, okay, on that project. So we are creating this and doing this mission to start this wave. Of course, it's a change. It's a change in the whole value chain of what we do in development. So we need to understand this. But I think that the second wave, it's something like, okay, how we can consolidate in standards. For example, just talking on behalf of PMI. PMI at the PMBOK Guide created the 10th knowledge area this year for stakeholder management. And there is a very strong chance that PMI will be publishing soon an extension about environmental sustainability, talking about only one piece of talking about environment as something like a knowledge area with process, and this something like a standard. UNOPS, we are here to support our partners to deliver better projects. So we don't have initially an intention of creating a global standard. Okay, we were right now trying to do this. Of course, based on the results we reach with this, then of course this can be a best practice that can be shared as an example towards other organizations and towards the society. But so far, we don't have a strong intention of immediately creating a certification or something like that on that. Okay?
Thank you very much. My name is Sorin, and I'm coming from the NGO world or sector. With your permission, I have 2 questions, and you can decide which one you want to answer. The first question would be, in your work, what is the next milestone? What is the next major breakthrough that you are aiming for? This will be the first question. And the second question is a little bit longer. Coming from the NGO sector, I find myself competing quite often with similar organizations with who we are actually sharing the same cause, which is a little bit of a paradox when we are talking about education, when we are talking about community development, but it is out there because of these similar resources. And we are mostly competing for funds when we need to do fundraising. Now, my question to you is, do you find yourself in competition with other organizations, other institutions, other, I don't know what? And if yes, and oops, that's my third question, is how do you deal with this kind of competition for resources, attention, beneficiaries maybe? Thank you very much.
Do you want to? I think you can answer that question. Yeah, but the one, okay. Is this directed to UNOPS or to all of us?
It's directed to the panel, and you can decide.
Okay, no, I can answer. But
it's not important to hear all the 4.
Okay. So let me try to start answering, and then maybe you can. So our next milestone on this, it's to increase the awareness of the people around sustainability. So why we are doing this today? You may ask me, oh, why we are putting 1,000 people together to talk about this? It's to so when you go home, you go different. You think, oh, this guy's talking about something that I was not completely aware. So my next milestone is when I go there and I talk, people understand better what is a sustainable result and what we do, okay? And what we do. Second, you said on the competition side, I have a mixed answer for you. It's yes and no. It's yes and no. I know you don't like this kind of answer, but what I'm telling you is that, of course, everybody is keen to support, okay? Is keen to support. But I see all this competition in a very healthy way. I don't see this in a bad way, okay, like other people see. Why I see this in a best way? Because this, at the end, will benefit the beneficiaries. Because what we need to do more. We need to be more efficient. We need to deliver more. This is a way to compete. So, but we at UNOPS, we challenge ourselves every single day. I wake up every day thinking how I can do better, how I can do. Why I'm doing this? Because how I can deliver better. And of course, at the end, for example, when a donor decides for another organization and not you, of course you come to a question saying why they did that. Why? What's the background? Are we failing? Are we not so good? Are we not so prepared? What we did wrong? And it's not saying, okay, this, at the end it's helping the beneficiaries. But for us, when we have a business, it's a good for us because, okay, we have a partner that trusts us. And if we don't have the business, it's also a way for us to, okay, what went wrong? Why the Norwegian government, we are using Norway here, doesn't want to do with us, but want to do with someone else? So which kind of value that we didn't show? We have discussions every single day, the word value. Because value is different from cost. For nothing, every discount you can give is not enough, right? Because if people don't see value in what you do, then you are out of the business, right? So as an NGO, in sector, what you need, when you don't have a business, you need to understand why this didn't happen. Why? What I did wrong? What is my, why I didn't build this case to get this opportunity, okay? But I see this in a very healthy way. I don't see this in a bad way. I think I'm very much, of course, with my background, very much in favor of meritocracy, okay? So, and we need to be good in what we do, okay? Henrik.
Well, I can also answer yes and no on all those questions. I think that, I mean, Ricardo picked up most of it, but I think it's, I mean, it's also two aspects. One is that if you as an NGO face competition around donor money, it's about getting the donors to talk to each other because there's a lot of overlap and a lot of incentives. But besides that, I mean, from the UNOPS perspective, sorry, that one died. No, it's coming back, sorry. From the UNOPS perspective, it's also about, I mean, can we add value? And if we can't add value, we either have to change or we shouldn't be there. So, I mean, if there's a private sector that's capable of doing something that we are looking at, then we should be careful and actually say what value can we add in what role. And that's also why we need to be very careful on adapting and changing to where we are in the country context. So there is no one solution fits all, because even within a country, the national capacity and the role and the value we can add might change even from one city to the next. And that's very important for us to recognize that always, as Ricardo points out, what's the value that we can add as an organization? And if there's not a clear value to the people we serve, then we need to kind of reconsider what are we doing and how are we doing it. On your first question on a big milestone, Ricardo also touched on it, and I tried to touch on it in my presentation. The big milestone for me is to really truly get a holistic view on sustainability embedded into what we do. That is a major challenge because you have different commercial forces, different density, different special interests. But even if I say that we would like to work upstream, we would like to understand an early engagement, we might not be at the table. We might come in late. So then the question is for us, what questions can we ask to make that informed decision of how we engage? So for me, a really true milestone was also to include the economic dimension. A lot of international institutions have decided that they only look on sustainability from the environmental and social because it keeps them narrowed on their work package or their project. But for us, I think the economic one, which then touches on all this thing with national capacity and how you actually deliver, for me, a huge milestone is to actually get to that point when you can start having those discussions and start lining those things together.
I think we have I saw a lot of hands, but time is running. So we have one question here, one there. So let's just try to
Sí, yeah. Hi, my name is Juan Almeida. I'm Spanish. I would like to thank you all for this very interesting seminar. I'm not engineering. I come from an engineering family, and I'm national economist, and I think we have more or less the same way of thinking in some ways. I would like to thank you especially because when I came here, I thought that when we talk about sustainable project was more about environmental sustainable projects, but I realized that it's way wider than that. We are talking more about environmental, technical, how to involve a society, a whole society in aspects. And from that point of view, it's very interesting for me. But I would like to ask you to see if you can say to me or give me some clarification about. I believe that when you started a project for many years ago, or when you decided to create a group to manage projects, you always thought that those projects were to mean or were decided to long last. Nobody makes a project just to last a couple of years. And from that point of view, all projects from the beginning of times are sustainable. And above that, I would like to know if you have some kind of follow-up of the project. For being sustainable, you need to have some kind of tool or some kind of measure to decide, okay, from this, if this project lasts, let's say, 10 years, then we can say that it's sustainable. If it lasts 3 years, for me, from my point of view, it's not sustainable. Maybe it's from the environment point of view, of course, but it's more, or maybe the project is designed to last 3 years, okay? Then it's sustainable if it lasts 3 years, but if it lasts 1 year, it's not at all sustainable. If you make a road that is going to last, I don't know, 3 years, and then you have to make a lot of adjustments or reparations, or it doesn't work anymore, it's not sustainable.
Okay.
And I would like to know if you make a follow-up, or you have a tool, or you have decided to create a new tool for that. Yeah, and I would like also to thank the Norwegian girl, because she made a very interesting question, I think. As I say, I'm a national economist, and I'm very aware. I know, as I said, my family is an engineering family. Unfortunately, my kids are also trying to be engineers. So, and I know sometimes that it's very difficult to, the economists have, I say that we have more or less some kind of same tools we work with, but we have maybe economists, the more social, national economists at least, not those who work in banks and so on. We have a more social perspective of things. And I think it was a very interesting question that not to search for culture, many people that work in a project, but also diversifying more the professionals that work in the field, maybe psychologists, sociologists, especially when we are working in special situations like catastrophes and so on. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you. I'll be just pointing to you. First, we are developing exactly this. I just want to make one quick comment. It's that in our case, in development, maybe it's not 10 years or 1 year that makes the difference. We need to understand what is the expectations, because sometimes, for example, you're developing something in a war zone or something like that, that it's completely unpredictable, the future, but you need to do something. So maybe it's not the best decision to build a bridge that will take more time but will last for 200 years, because you don't know really if they will keep the bridge there for 100 years. So maybe you need to do something faster. So this is part of the sustainability. It's to understand what is the need of that community and what is the intent and how we can address this in the faster way. So it's a more holistic approach on everything, that only, okay, if it lasts 10 years, it's better than we need to understand more the context on that. So we need to do that. And we are implementing this. We don't have today something ready to do that because our environment changes very much, but we are working exactly towards that, okay? Just to give you. We have one answer, one question there, right? Yeah, Marianne. I'm sorry because we are project managers, so we want to make sure we finish on time.
Yeah, thank you. I know we are just in time to finish. I'm bringing a voice from South America and from Argentina. I'm a journalist working in an NGO on indigenous affairs here in Copenhagen. And we have been talking a lot about doing, but it's also about how you communicate what you do in an effective way. And bringing up the question from the back about the breaking down this up and down perspective and also bringing up a multicultural dimension when you're working in a project, which are the skills of a communicator to communicate effectively in sustainability projects. For me, has been really difficult to talk because, of course, the people that are beneficiaries, they don't have the access to information, and you need to talk through them. So which is the limit, and how can you break down this up and down perspective? Thank you.
Does anyone want to?
Well, from an engineering perspective, being very practical, I just can have a number of examples which has been used, not specifically within UNOPS, but when I've been engaged earlier. I mean, you have to adapt to the cultural setting, which is number 1, and number 2, and number 3. So anything from using, in my earlier jobs, we used local singers that actually, because the tradition in that region was to walk from village to village and communicate through songs. So basically we incorporated what we wanted to do and information about the project into local musicians that then walked from village to communicate, because that was the traditional way of communicating. And that's also something where, coming back to the challenge of managing projects out of a set kind of fixed thing, because a lot of people around the world is not used to get information from written documents or pamphlets, or, I mean, as Ricardo mentioned, if they don't even have electricity, how can they possibly access the internet? Or you give them the little USB stick of all your annual reports, and I wonder what to do with that. So I think there's a huge, what I would answer from a project perspective is, of course, the deep understanding of the local culture and the means of communications, and we do not have the answers, they have the answers to that.
Yeah. Gill, do you want to?
Yeah, maybe just to add some examples to that. I think the two-way communication is really important. I mean, in terms of sharing information with communities, things like community radio and community meetings are very important, but there's also greater and greater use of mobile technologies as a way of actually feeding information up, rather than this focus on feeding it down. And communities can play a really important role in things like monitoring and evaluation through fairly simple mobile technologies, and fairly kind of basic public health messages, that type of thing, can again be conveyed through radio or mobile phone messaging. So there are ways of doing it, and I think we're trying to further develop those and build on those, but still a long way to go.
Okay. So I think, I'm sorry, we are running late. So for the other questions, I will be staying here, we'll be staying around. So just come and we can talk more. So I just want to thank you again, the panelists, for being here, for supporting us on this event. And thank you all for the questions. Now I'm just turning over to Jan for the final remarks. Yeah, so just for us and the benefit of the time. So thank you. Thank you very much. Okay? Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we've come to the formal closing then. And sitting here, I was listening to the presentations, the panelists, the questions. I was mindful of the fact that we are meeting in a platinum LEED certified building, that we are in an industry of humanitarian development, which traditionally has been very donor-driven and north-south. And it was therefore good to see in the presentations and to hear in the comments and questions as well from you all the attention to the local context and the local communities, the local capacities as a key ingredient in sustainability. And we must keep in mind that there are some big trends as well in the world, that this donor funding ODA is actually reducing in both absolute and relative terms, and there's so much resources available. There's a shift in economic gravity in the world, accelerated, I think, by the global financial crisis, where actually many developing countries have greater financial resources and greater capacities as well. And so that's where we need to look, and that's where we need to work. There was good discussions, I felt, also about how to make not only engineers and project managers and teams fit for purpose, what they need to have within them to function well in a sustainability context. And I think that applies over to organizations as well. Certainly as the United Nations, an organization known for its intergovernmental processes and the Warsaw meetings, etc., but also working out in the field, there has been a realization that there are many players out there, NGOs, civil society organizations, the private sector, and these are all partnerships that we need to, all of us, to work within as well. Well, let me, already Ricardo thanked the panelists. I certainly want to echo that. Gill and Luke most especially, coming in and also sharing experiences about their organizations, which I thought was interesting. And then a big thanks to all of you for participating here in the room and online, and to all the people in the blue t-shirts, and to Marianne, who has led the project team organizing this event. Thank you.